Oh, darn it. Okay, well, today is the. Oh, I see why it looks so. There we go. Well, now it's a little too close, but whatever. This is the vlog for April 20th. Blaze it. I guess I'll take a moment to say I've never blazed it. I was a very straight laced person when I was in high school, which is to say, I was no fun at all. And in college, I wasn't really that much better, except I started being a little more social. The crowd that I've run with in high school was social enough, but they were very nerdy, so I wasn't exposed to a lot of things until my college years. And the big thing that I was exposed to was drinking. I had a couple friends that actually did binge drinking. Got crazy one night out of the month, usually a Friday or Saturday night. And I never participated, but sometimes I hung out with them while they were in that state. I was convinced that every sip of alcohol you ever had was causing brain damage, and it was not going to be. I was going to preserve myself. I was going to live to a ripe old age and have all my mental faculties available to me. Yes, yes, indeed. I had all the answers, like any good college kid did, and of course didn't. I thought I did, and I just did not understand. I had a psych teacher that told me straight up, yes, every time you have an alcoholic beverage, it causes a small but trackable amount of brain damage. Apparently, he was just wrong. Either that, or the alcohol industry, which is quite divisive and not unified in any one way, because the different types of alcohol have different manufacturers, and many have nothing to do with one another. So the alcohol industry has either altered Wikipedia and a number of other notable sources to say that alcohol doesn't cause brain damage, or which they actually do claim is that a lot of claims of brain damage have been leveled over the years and none have been scientifically proven to be true. I think that drinking an awful lot will dehydrate you to the point where you can cause yourself a lot of harm, and I think that alcoholism is a disease that some people are susceptible to and some people are less susceptible to. I don't think I'm an alcoholic, but I don't want to find out for sure, so I carefully monitor how much I drink. But as far as blazing it is concerned, none of my friends were doing pot in an open way. The first time, I had one friend who was very much into it, but we all sort of thought he was a little off his nut. And I only went over to his place one night when they were hothousing it, and it was a very awkward night because I didn't want any part of it, but I did sort of want to hang out, and they didn't want to do anything because that was how high they were. And so I sort of started to associate it with being a loser, which wasn't really fair. I had seen a lot of people who were very much into pot waste what I felt like was all of their time trying to get some and then smoke it and then get the next whatever. And I had this image in my head that was drug culture, and it was self-destructive and it was terrible to be around and blah blah this that and the other thing. A very small sample population to be forming an opinion like that on. That I see that now in my more recent years, but at the time I was convinced, okay, this is not for me. But the people that were drinking, on the other hand, tended to be go-getters, tended to be fairly successful. They just needed something to relax while they were desperately trying to do well at school or desperately trying to hold jobs that they might not have been otherwise qualified for if they didn't relax once and again. So when I was 23 years old, I had my first night of drinking. I had had maybe a couple sips of an alcoholic beverage here and there for years previous, but my Windows has done something weird. Let's see here. Yeah, whatever. I had had a few sips of something or other here and there and didn't think much of it, but I decided to go whole hog. My 23rd birthday. Now, my 21st, my 23rd birthday, I said, okay, guys, get me liquored up. And I went over to one of my friends' houses, and we had all kinds of drinks. I said, okay, you don't like the taste of alcohol, so we're going to get you started on Mike's Hard Lemonades. We've got some wine cooler-esque things here that you'll probably enjoy the taste of that will get you plenty drunk. And then once you've had quite a bit to drink, we'll make you a cocktail that will taste very good. Because it was all about taste. and I got falling over drunk. I got very silly. They found out that I'm a very silly drunk, which was one of the reasons they kept trying to get me to drink after that night. And at about 2 in the morning, I blacked out. Which is to say, everything went dark. And I sort of looked around. And I said, "Hey guys, is this what they mean when they say blackout?" And they said, "No, you drunk idiot. The power went out." Which is what had happened. It hadn't been raining or windy or anything, but just randomly in that apartment complex that night, the power went out for a good portion of Redmond. We walked outside and we could see power in certain areas farther off, but the areas nearest us was completely dark. No reason for it, so I stumbled around in the dark in the parking lot for a little while before finally coming in and falling asleep on a couch. It was in a pretty rough way the next morning, but I drove home. Well, I drove first. I slept until about 10 or 11. And then I went to McDonald's and I had a bunch of protein because I heard that was what you're supposed to do when you're hungover, although I don't know exactly how hungover I was. And then I went home and I think I crawled back into bed and slept for another 5 hours. And that was my 23rd birthday and my first real night of heavy drinking. Now, aside from that being very, very tired and very out of it the next morning, I did not have a headache. And I felt maybe like I had something of a cold, but I never threw up. And to this day, I never have. I actually went out to get a beer tonight. And this is one of the reasons I know I'm an alcoholic. I had one, not very large one. And called it quits. I didn't keep a tab open. And because as the years have gone by, I have found that more valuable than any amount of drink in the world, no matter how good it tastes, no matter how buzzed it gets you, no matter how good your company is, if you can't get yourself home under your own power, you're not going to have that good a time. I don't like relying on other people for rides. Maybe I'll tell that story some other time. But yeah, I like to be able to enjoy a little bit to drink, but I don't mind being a designated driver for other people, as long as I'm, being fairly treated for it. And I very rarely get as rip-roaring drunk as I did that night. Mostly because all the friends that I would drink with have grown up and don't do that kind of thing anymore. Many of them have families now. How weird is that? So that's my story for today. And like I said, I've got some others. Maybe I'll get to some of those eventually. I should really go back and watch a bunch of these to figure out what topics I've covered so I don't start repeating myself. I don't think I've told the story before, but I could have been wrong. So, yeah. I've been Eric Spornitz, and tomorrow will be better.